Good morning, everyone. My name is Suzanne Templin, and I coordinate the webinars for Hausmann-Johnson Insurance. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar titled Great Place to Work, How You Can Achieve It, presented by Mary Jo Speakerman, Amy Esri, and Leslie Osmond. Today's webinar will run about 45 minutes. After the webinar, we will have a question and answer session. If you have a question during the webinar, feel free to type it into the chat feature, and Mary Jo, Amy, or Leslie will address it during the Q&A portion. After the webinar is over, there will be a short survey we are hoping you can fill out for us. A note that this webinar has been certified for continuing education credits by the Society for Human Resources Management and the Human Resources Certification Institute. Details on those credits will be provided to you at the conclusion of this webinar. You can find a PDF version of today's presentation in the handout section of the GoTo application. Also, please be aware that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for review on the webinar archives of our website. If you do not want to participate in a recorded webinar, you may want to close the application at this time. You will receive a follow-up email from Leslie later today. I would now like to introduce you to our presenters for today's webinar. With over 20 years of human resources management in numerous industries, Mary Jo is uniquely qualified to advise the clients of Hausmann-Johnson Insurance on human resources related issues. She provides guidance on complex employment topics such as employee relations, talent management, recruitment, onboarding, and training. Mary Jo and her team help lighten the load for clients that may otherwise spend a lot of time, effort, and energy attempting to do their own risk management and employee benefits administration. Mary Jo is especially excited about the journey Hausmann-Johnson has taken to become designated as a Great Place to Work by the Great Place to Work Institute. She began studying the process over 10 years ago, and when she joined Hausmann-Johnson, she knew the pieces were in place to catapult the agency into the list of the best places to work in insurance, which was achieved in 2015 and 2016. Amy Esri believes that a company will be successful when the employees are successful, and she values being a contributor to that success at Hausmann-Johnson Insurance. She uses over 20 years of human resources experience to oversee the agency's internal HR management while also serving as an HR consultant for clients. Amy recognizes that running a business is complicated enough without having to understand employment law, so she does the legwork by continually researching and determining how the law applies to specific situations. She enjoys simplifying a complex employment issue to ensure that a client is considering all options and is aware of all ramifications. Amy holds a BS in Business Administration from Truman University, as well as an MBA from the University of Missouri-Columbia. And finally, Leslie is the Marketing and Communications Manager at Hausmann-Johnson Insurance. She brings nearly 10 years of corporate marketing, communications, and public relations experience to her role. Leslie engages in the development and execution of effective strategic plans that are aligned with business objectives. Leslie graduated from Edgewood College and has a bachelor's degree in communications and graphic design. She sits on the Business Advisory Committee for Project Search, a high school to work transition program for students with disabilities, and is an active member of several marketing associations. The three of them have a wealth of knowledge on this topic, and we are very thankful that they could share some of their wisdom with us today. Welcome, Mary Jo, Amy, and Leslie.
Hi, everyone. This is Leslie. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, I'd like to take a minute to walk through what we'll be going over. We're going to be talking about what a great place to work is and why you would want to go through the work of becoming one of these certified organizations. We'll discuss what a great place to work looks like. What are the components that make up a great workplace? Once we've created this foundation, we'll discuss determining your readiness to apply. Then, once you've applied, what do you do with the survey results? Finally, after you win, what's the best way to share your news? So let's dive in. It's easy for us to imagine what makes a workplace unpleasant. Most of us have worked in companies at some point in time where it felt bad. These were places that we dreaded going to each day and were places where we may have felt disrespected and poorly treated. it may be harder to identify the components that need to be in place to turn that situation around and make a great workplace culture, as some of us have never worked in a great workplace. Why do you want to become a great place to work? You may want to recruit job applicants. Qualified job applicants often have choices. Being able to legitimize your workplace as one of the best will only help with recruiting top talent. You want to enhance your brand. From a marketer's perspective, achieving great place to work is like winning the marketing lottery. What better way to represent your company and your brand by being able to say, we are successful and our clients are successful because we care. Many say it, but after winning the award, you now have proof. Retain talent. When employers are inspired, they will do their very best work. Some of the questions you'll get asked during the Great Place to Work application may be, how do you thank employees? How do you listen? And most importantly, how do you inspire? At HJI, we have baby showers, give recognition, celebrate, and provide opportunities for employees to give recommendations and ideas to improve our culture. All of these ultimately come down to trust and help create an environment where employees feel inspired. You want to identify areas of strength and weakness. Following the application process, you'll receive data, a lot of really good data. From this, you'll be able to determine where you're doing well and where there is room for improvement. And be prepared to make changes. If your organization isn't ready to accept the areas where improvement is necessary and develop a plan to address it, you may not be ready to apply. You want to drive employee engagement. Much of the process of Great Place to Work is about communication, communicating with your employees the vision of the organization, and regularly making sure employees understand how their job fits into the big picture. And finally, you want to increase business success. This will come naturally. Valued employees equal valued clients. Creating a great place to work is a process. A company must adopt the philosophy of continuous improvement in everything they do. I'm going to now turn it over to Amy to talk about what a great place to work looks like.
Thank you, Leslie. While the solutions you arrive at are to improve your workplace culture will be unique to your organization, there are certain components of workplace culture that are in place in great workplaces. Communication, trust, respect, engagement, and environment. So let's start with communication. The world is a place where people have immediate access to information about things happening anywhere on the globe. Via the smartphones in their hands, they see photos and live streams of both wonderful and horrible events. The sheer volume of what they're exposed to is enormous by comparison to earlier generations. This level of access to information sets the standard for what your organization must provide to employees. Think of promoting your company to your employees the way you would promote it to a prospective client. Share information that will help them understand the mission, vision, and values of the company, and the plans that the company is undertaking to grow and change. And certainly, employees are interested in the financial growth and stability of the company. You must communicate comprehensively and frequently using different mediums and approaches. Ideas might include all company meetings, either in person or virtually, department meetings, again, either in person or virtually, informal meetings between leadership or management and staff, and media communications that are appropriate for your employee population and location, such as the intranet, social media, and newsletters. Use multiple communication approaches for the same message to ensure it's received. Ask employees for feedback on the communication frequency and methods used, and refine your approach based on their information. In times of great change, you need to step up communication to an even higher level. That may mean higher frequency, more detail, more feedback, and more listening sessions. Waiting until you have all the information relating to a matter may be a luxury you don't have. More frequent updates informing employees of what you do and don't know may be viewed as more transparent and trustworthy in approach. Employee communications may be a place where human resources and your marketing and public relations department intersect. Leverage what the HR people know employees must be told with the brand and mass communications knowledge that the marketing and PR staff can bring to the table, and together these functions may be able to advance communications more significantly than if they work separately. Remote workers either based in one location or workers that travel a significant amount of time, may have special communication needs that need to be addressed. Banish the phrase, "We'll tell them just what they need to know," from your vocabulary. This is an old-fashioned mindset, and further, it fosters the perception by employees that the powerful people in the organization keep secrets from them. Don't measure the amount of communication provided to employees based upon how little you might want or need. Put yourself in the average employee's shoes and provide them with the level of communication they need. The next component of a great workplace are trust and respect. Trust and respect are critical aspects of a healthy organization and are closely connected. And unlike communication, which involves doing concrete activities, trust and respect can feel ambiguous. These areas are harder to define, but it's painfully evident when they're missing in an organization. So what does trust look like in an organization? Each individual will have their own definition of trust, but we can identify some common themes. In a high-trust environment, management is perceived as ethical in decision-making and in actions. Management is perceived as honest with clients and with staff. Management walks the talk and is careful to live up to promises, follow their own rules, and do what they say they'll do. And finally, employees feel comfortable bringing concerns to management and can expect that those concerns will be heard and addressed. When trust is weak in an organization, it can seem like you're chasing a ghost. No fun HR program will fix it. A new policy won't fix it. But there are things a company can do to influence trust in the organization. Do what you say you're going to do. Review your policies. Are there any that are written but not followed? Oh, that's in our handbook, but nobody really follows it. Or maybe the policy is followed except for certain people who get away with not following it. So either change or get rid of the policy or start implementing it consistently. Do you have any managers that tell employees one thing but then do another? They promise training or resources. They promise promotions. Employees are given direction, but then unexpected and unexplained course changes occur. This kind of ambiguity can derail trust quickly. Don't bluff or sugarcoat. Be brave in giving bad news. Your employees are adults and they can take bad news better than you think. I've worked with several organizations now where leadership was able to say, "Oh, sales are down, but this is why, and this is what we're going to do about it." It can be hard for a president or CEO to be vulnerable that way, but it inspires trust from your staff. And honesty in sharing bad news can inspire creativity and dedication from your staff, which will help you through those rough times. Often a company says, "We need to cut costs," and then their best ideas come from their employees. Hold all managers accountable for their own performance as leaders. When a bad manager is tolerated, it tells your staff that management is not to be trusted, and it sends a poor message about company values. Invest in your managers with training, coaching, and performance discussions. A manager who is bullying, incompetent, micromanaging can cause significant damage to trust, morale, productivity, and retention. Use informal interaction between leadership and staff to build relationships. Trust is built over time, and it's built through real relationships. So look for opportunities for staff and leadership to interact in casual ways. Now, this can be achieved through department meetings, one-on-one meetings, but also look for less formal opportunities like company events and volunteering. At HGI, we have a lot of team events. We had Office Olympics last year, an annual indoor mini golf tournament, and we do United Way Day of Caring projects. In each of these, we mix the teams across levels and across departments. When you're digging in the dirt side by side with one of your senior leaders, that builds real relationships. And I'm not saying you should all go out and find a dirty, sweaty project, but find ways to get people together in a more casual way. Communicate. When employees don't know what's going on and don't have a say in project initiatives, how can they trust? This doesn't mean that your organization is a democracy with every employee having a say in every decision. It means communicating with your employees and getting their insights so they can trust in the decision-making process and the people who are making the decisions. Stop micromanaging and start coaching. Trust goes both ways. When employees feel trusted, they'll return that trust. Coach your employees in problem-solving and decision-making and encourage them to take ownership of their roles. This will mean they will occasionally make mistakes. That's how people learn. But in teaching employees to solve problems themselves, you're growing future leaders and building a culture of trust that goes both ways. Encourage employees to develop trust amongst themselves. In group settings, encourage employees to share their expertise, experiences, and insights with each other in a supportive environment. Set expectations for the team, or ground rules, so people feel safe in sharing their ideas and even mistakes without fear of looking foolish or being ridiculed. So let's move on to respect. This is another area that's hard to define, and it's not activity-driven. Perks and fun events won't create a respectful workplace. In a high-respect organization, employees feel appreciated. Employees' ideas are encouraged and considered carefully. Management listens to employees' concerns and responds in a thoughtful manner. There are some things an organization can do to create and support a culture of respect. Leadership finds a way to make recognition and appreciation a habit. In a disrespectful environment, employees only get feedback when they do something wrong. In a respectful environment, managers look for opportunities to show appreciation and recognize employee contributions often. Take the pocket of pennies approach. I can't tell you where this came from. I've seen it referenced several times, but you put 5 pennies in your left pocket, and every time you thank someone or recognize someone, you move a penny into your right pocket. Your goal is to get all of your pennies to the right pocket by the end of the day. Now, this might seem forced, and you don't want to make up reasons to thank people, or it will seem false and insincere, but it's an example of a way to start a habit of showing appreciation on a regular basis. The goal is to build a culture where informal thank yous are common across departments and levels. Management should set the example by thanking employees in department meetings, company meetings, through individual and group email, etc., and encourage employees to thank each other. Recognition doesn't have to be expensive or time-consuming. At HJI, all company email shout-outs are quite common. We've had employees shout out for their team members even. That's what you're trying to get to, spontaneous appreciation. Focus on diversity. Go beyond tolerance to appreciate differences and individual contributions. If you have a diverse workforce, doing diversity training is just a start. And generally, experts will tell you it doesn't really work. So how can you bring acceptance and respect into your culture? Well, how about a multicultural potluck where everyone brings in foods from their heritage or nationality? Even if you have a lot of Caucasian employees, you'll find a few that are Irish or German or whatever that would love to bring in a dish that their family has passed down for years. Or host a lunch and learn where employees volunteer to speak for a few minutes on a family tradition. Look for ways to encourage education and celebrate differences in ways that are more fun and interesting than a canned diversity training program. Handle bullying and harassment quickly and effectively. When employees see bad behavior being tolerated, respect for management and the organization shrivels quickly. Sometimes the manager will say, I can't talk to this person. That's our best salesperson. They think this person is irreplaceable, and that's not true of anyone. And that person is likely causing more harm than good in reduced engagement and productivity in others and in higher turnover. Your high performers won't tolerate management that doesn't address bullying or harassment. They'll find another job elsewhere. Monitor for favoritism in pay, promotions, work assignment, perks, etc. While it's appropriate to treat your high performers differently in terms of pay, management attention, promotions, there's a line where you cross into favoritism. So review your practices to make sure you're not favoring any particular gender, age group, nationality, department, or even an individual. Favoritism or the appearance of favoritism happens in pretty much every organization, but you can still do what you can to identify it and address it. And sometimes it's just a perception. Oh, those engineers get all the perks. Okay, but do people realize that engineers work 20 hours a week more than anyone else? Sometimes favoritism is just a perception, but you still need to address it. Identify work-life balance needs and what you can do to offer flexibility. For many, work doesn't end when they leave the office for the day, and their personal problems don't cease to exist when they arrive at work. Managers should get to know their employees well enough to understand each individual's needs and demonstrate respect by working with each person to find the right balance, to the extent possible in that job and organization. Do you have an employee with small children? Do you have an employee that's caring for elderly relatives? A little flexibility can go a long way in showing employees that you respect them as individuals and not just a body in a cubicle. And finally, don't forget to demonstrate respect on a daily basis. That means people are not yelling at each other. People are courteous and even kind. That kindness is recognized. Managers should be the first to model respectful behavior every day and help employees to treat each other with respect even when they disagree. It's these daily interactions that provide the foundation for a culture of respect. And when it comes to respect, what you give is what you get back. Now Mary Jo is going to tell you about engagement and environment.
Thank you, Amy. Engagement is a word that we hear often in the context of employee relations. But do we take time to think about what it really means? A good example may be to think about it in the context of two people being engaged as a step towards marriage. What does that look like? Engaged people typically have a deep emotional attachment to one another. They share a vision about their future together, where they will live, how many children they might have, the support each will give to the other through life and through their careers, etc. They like one another. They assume the best about the other person, not the worst. They're generous with their time and efforts toward that person and give more than 50% to the relationship. They're humble, not arrogant with one another. They see the relationship as long-standing and go to extra lengths to clear up misunderstandings and hurt feelings. They apologize, and they're kind and cordial to each other. The marriage engagement scenario aligns very well with the cultural components that have to be in place for employee engagement to be successful. Understanding of the mission, vision, and especially the values of the company is critical to employee engagement. Employees are to be treated in a way that is positive, fair, and respectful. All levels of management should be held accountable to this standard. When mistakes occur, employees should be helped to learn from them rather than be punished. Employees should be treated as well as customers and clients are treated. Development of employees and managers must be supported. Career paths should be mutually identified and growth plans established. So how might these concepts of communication, development, and respect be converted into real action steps? Consider making efforts to assist employees in understanding how the work they do fits into the big picture. Communicate the goals the company is trying to achieve and talk to employees about how the specific things they do support these goals. Ideally, this message is delivered and supported by line managers. If possible, it's folded into performance management processes so that the employee sees a direct connection between the goals they're working on personally and the goals of the organization. The career growth today's employee desires isn't going to be satisfied with yesterday's put in your time and no news is good news approaches. Managers must talk to employees on an ongoing basis to understand what drives them in their career and to mutually explore developmental opportunities. Development plans with activities and goals should be identified so that employees have a clear roadmap to follow that holds both them and you as the employer accountable. A note that while career growth sometimes means a promotion or job change, at other times what the employees want is the opportunity to learn new skills or have different experiences. Fulfilling these desires may mean bringing in more creativity and open-mindedness to the conversations that managers have with staff so that opportunities can be identified. For these corporate and management efforts to be viewed as real, senior leadership and line management need to genuinely care about their employees as people. If management sees themselves as better than the employees or believes that employees should just be thankful they have a job and should do as they are told, you may have a financially profitable workplace, but you'll never have a great workplace with engaged employees. In earlier decades, the workplace played a secondary role to groups and networks that people were part of. Large families living their whole lives in the same community, membership in an ethnic group, and even membership in organized religion went much further to define an individual than where they worked. Work was often viewed as a job and less frequently as a career. For better or worse, the world has changed, and quite often none of the old factors that defined the groups that our grandparents saw themselves as part of are part of our lives today. Today, the relationships employees have with their coworkers and managers, and how they view the company they work for are much more significant to their identity. And more employees seek a meaningful career where they feel they can make a difference rather than simply having a job. Further, research has shown that having a friend at work is one of the biggest single predictors of an employee remaining with their employer. With all of this in mind, employers who aspire to offering a great workplace need to evaluate what they're doing to support their employees in their interest in connecting with others at work, and also what they're doing to support the community and society. Activities that further those themes may include regular planned social activities that are appropriate for the company, potlucks, after-work gatherings, picnics, book clubs, walking groups, running groups, whatever groups of people may be interested in. Community support of group or individual volunteer activities at charities or schools. Recognition and celebration of personal and company milestones, births, marriages, retirements, work anniversaries, educational achievements, successful project completions, and goal accomplishments. Any and all of these events can be shared with the work groups, departments, or the entire company as appropriate. A special note that executives and managers should manage by walking around. They should get to know as many line staff as possible and be available to them. They should see themselves as part of the employee community as a whole and show genuine interest in employees as individuals. They should also model the company's interest in community support by volunteering and doing service to the community themselves. So we've covered a lot of ground thus far, and you have a better idea of what components are recognized as important in a great workplace. As we covered them, I suspect you were thinking about your own company. It's important to ask yourself and your management team questions and seek honest answers to them. They include, if you took an engagement survey, do you have any idea how it would go? Would your employees be willing to participate in sufficient numbers to make the results credible? Would the employees feel they could speak confidently and confidentially without punishment? Are there policies or practices you feel employees would speak out about negatively or positively? Are there employee groups or locations that are more or less satisfied? Is leadership willing to share the results? If you do the survey, you have to share something. This is very important. You can't do the survey and not report the results. So if leadership doesn't give you 100% assurance that they will at least report highlights of survey results, good and bad, you should seriously consider not doing a survey. Is leadership willing to make changes? Oftentimes, the survey results will come as no surprise to you. The results will validate what you hear in exit interviews from employees who are comfortable speaking with you honestly and from your own observations. If you brought these concerns forward already and leadership was unwilling to change, what's different now? Or is nothing different? If there isn't a true willingness to change, doing the survey may be a waste of time. Why do you want the results? What's the real reason? It could be to validate what you've been telling leadership all along. It could be to get recognition because the company won an award. It could be to improve in areas where the company has shortcomings. Regardless, it's important to identify why you're doing the survey, as it will drive how the data is used. Why and how do you want the organization to change? Is your company recovering from the recession, and is your staff fatigued and demoralized from layoffs and many reorganizations? Is there a negative vibe in the air, and do you want that to change to a positive one? Do you need to grow your employee base to achieve business goals, but are you experiencing high turnover? Do you want to retain more employees than you've been? Are there a number of retirements coming soon in critical areas of your company? And do you need to make your company more attractive to younger workers to develop a pipeline of new talent to replace them? Is your company on the verge of dramatic product or service changes based upon changes in your industry? And is retention and support of your employees critical during the change process? These are but a few examples of reasons why and how employers might want to consider how efforts to support a better workplace can further the changes that their organization is embarking upon. So the results are in. Now what do? If you're like most of us, you'll experience a mix of emotions when you receive your company's results. Will they be better than expected, worse than expected? Will they confirm what you know, or will there be surprises? At some point, you'll have to open your report and dive into the data. But who beyond you should see all of the data? And is the data simply ratings and scores, or are there individual comments that have been captured? The case to limit access. Some companies choose to severely limit the access to raw data. That might include the CEO, senior human resources staff, and sometimes senior management. Companies may choose this route if they're a small company, and based upon the responses, it's highly likely that who said what can be identified. If responses vary significantly based upon work location, age, race, gender, or some other critical factor, an organization may need to conduct an investigation to get at the root causes of the variation. It may make sense to do that prior to sharing results. Also, if written responses target individual names whose critical statements are harassing in nature or appear to be reports of harassment or hostile work environments, those situations should be kept confidential and investigated. The case for broad access. There are organizations that have a very open culture, and in those organizations, all things may be open book. If that's typical in your organization, then sharing granular data broadly to managers and employees may be a given. If the data is broadly disseminated, consider how employees may react to what they learn, and also based upon how it is distributed, will the data end up being posted somewhere on social media? The balancing act. There is a careful balance that needs to be struck between transparency and presentation of the information in a way that properly sets the stage for the company moving forward to address areas of deficiency. Another consideration may be how much raw data managers and employees will successfully be able to absorb and take action on. If you ask many questions and if responses are categorized by factors such as age, gender, location, etc., it may be hard for managers and employees to understand and draw conclusions from the data. Each organization must honestly evaluate its culture and come up with a plan that properly balances the proper level of disclosure. As a final step, consider the emotional response that managers and employees will likely have to receiving the information. That single consideration may guide you in determining how much information you share. So how do you communicate the results? When you determine the amount of information you plan to share, a communication plan then needs to be developed. It's important to remember that at this stage, you are communicating the results and telling employees, communicating the results and telling employees how the organization plans to address them. Rather, you are advising the employees of the results and telling the employees how the organization is planning on gathering information from them and other sources to develop plans at a later date to address them. To illustrate the difference between these two approaches, consider this. If you learn that a friend is unhappy with their current vehicle and needs to purchase a new one, you could share with him information about a car that you think would be great for him. You could encourage him to buy an SUV with all-wheel drive that would be very safe and would give him a lot of room for his family and his pets. So you tell him that. And then he tells you that what will make him happy is a 2-seat convertible sports car He wants a driving experience that's fun and fast and has no interest in bringing his family along. Safety and all-wheel drive are of no importance to him. You thought you had the best vehicle identified for him. And what you identified was a good vehicle. It's just not the vehicle that's going to make him happy. Resist the urge to introduce solutions at this point in the process. Recognize that the urge to do this will be compelling. It's tough to report on deficiencies and not include a plan about how to fix them. But you can't fix them at this stage because you don't have enough information about how to fix them. In an ideal world, you would be able to share the results of the survey with your managers and employees in a face-to-face meeting. If that's possible, by all means do so. If it's not possible logistically, consider creating a video that conveys the main points and train department managers or location managers to deliver an in-person message that accompanies the video. And that leads to an important point about involving management staff. Management staff must always know what the communication plan is and that what their role is in it before line staff know. Communication must start with those in management, who not only need to support that message, but can provide feedback to you that can be used to refine the message before it's shared with staff. Start with the positive. Within the survey results that you have, always start the presentation with an overview of where the organization scored well. Celebrate and acknowledge those successes. Perhaps employees rated your employee benefits highly. Couple that fact with a reminder of new benefits that you might have introduced in the past few years. Perhaps employees rated their relationship with their manager highly. Talk about management training initiatives that may have contributed to those scores. Perhaps employees rated the technology they use in their daily work highly. Talk about the selection process undertaken, the financial investment made, and the productivity gains that were considered when implementing a new technology. Talk about how employee input and commitment has helped to make these good things happen. In short, set a positive tone to the meeting. The organization is doing well in some areas, and that is because the organization can recognize needs and with the help of employees address those needs. Then turn to areas where the organization had low scores. You'll have to decide how many of the low scoring areas will make the cut. Do you share the bottom 3, the bottom 5? Don't show them a large number as it will overwhelm them. And the reality is you won't be able to address that many in an adequate way. Don't be embarrassed and don't apologize. And don't make excuses for the low scoring areas. Approach the topic in a matter-of-fact way. Here are some of our lowest scoring areas. It's likely that they will come as no surprise to employees. Then state the fact that in order to improve, the organization needs to take a closer look at the reasons why employees gave low scores in those areas. The company also plans to solicit managers and employees for ideas on how to improve. Share the time frame within which that will happen. Those ideas and plans to address them will then be shared with employees at a later date. Identify what that date is. Be realistic, not too short and not too long. Hold yourself accountable to those dates. Plan interim communication to occur frequently and in a variety of formats. Employees need to believe that the company is serious about improving and is willing to devote resources to that endeavor. The next step involves asking questions and listening deeply. Gather focus groups of people in different locations, different ages, different genders, different title groupings or job groupings within the company, whatever makes sense to you based upon your situation. Groups of 7 to 10 in size may be ideal. Determine whether employees should volunteer to participate or be nominated. An ideal situation may be a mix of the two. Determine whether a facilitator from outside the company will host the groups or if it's better to bring in something from inside the company will host the groups, or if it's better to bring in someone from outside the company to do this. In these focus group venues, the positive and negative responses should be shared with employees again, as a reminder, and then the negative responses should be explored. Questions could be asked such as, a certain percentage of employees stated that they were dissatisfied with, and insert whatever that was. Why do you think people responded in that way? Listen carefully, ask probing questions, and try to get feedback from everyone in the room. Follow up with questions such as, what steps or things do you think we could do to increase satisfaction in that area? Again, listen and ask probing follow-up questions. Thank your participants and let them know how to reach you if they confidentially wish to comment on some areas. Expect that there will be some who will be more comfortable talking about some things with you one-on-one. Finally, summarize your findings. Compare the findings across groups and identify similarities and differences. Develop proposed action steps and present findings and action steps to senior management for approval. Now we're going to turn back to Leslie, who's going to talk to us about how to market your success.
A lot of people may wonder why a human resource department is working with the marketing department. They're completely separate, and in some cases, that's correct. But think about how much work you've put into developing a positive workplace culture. It's important to bring in your marketing department to help with recruiting and retention. We've listened to Mary Jo and Amy talk about the process of applying for the Great Place to Work recognition and how to determine if you're ready. Now we're going to talk about what to do once you win. If you're at this point, you've put in the work, surveyed employees, identified areas your organization needs improvement, and have implemented plans to make those changes. You've waited months to hear, and as soon as the email comes in congratulating you on making the list, you want to cheer and share it with as many people as possible. You're excited, as you should be. But before you blast a thank you to everyone who helped make this possible Facebook post, develop a plan. If you're in HR, pull in your marketing department. Likely, they've been involved in the application process. But if not, now is the time to tell them. Together with your marketing team, take a step back and revisit your strategy. What are your goals for the year, and how can this achievement help you reach them? Who is your audience, and why do they care? What is your method of advertising? This award is a big commitment. You want to make sure you can reap the benefits for longer than the life of that one-time Facebook post. For example, a content-driven marketer develops business through education and trust. The strategy is to gain clients through helping them solve problems. So initially, they may announce the award through a press release, blog post, put it on their website, and in their email signatures. They'll share the news on LinkedIn and Facebook. But what next? Again, they'll go back to their strategy. When the strategy is content-based, they may follow up with education and resources that will help their audience. Maybe it's videos from employees explaining what this award means to them, in online training about why the award is important to your clients, followed up by an ebook giving people the tools and knowledge to achieve this recognition for themselves. If you're an HR professional, you'll likely be a part of this process, as you'll now be the expert on the certification process. If you're a marketing professional, remember that people want to hear from people. Get your organization involved in helping educate your audience on the award. Remember that you have internal and external clients. Developing a strategy to appeal to both of these customers is going to be critical in amplifying your award. Whether you're marketing or HR, have an impromptu company meeting to announce the award. This would also be a great time to unveil your new marketing campaign. Get people excited about the award, your company, and the effort you're putting forth to make it better. Report back the success of your campaign later in the year. Remember, the real reason for applying was to improve. The most asked question we received after winning this award was, how did you do that? Don't be afraid to share with others how you were able to achieve your recognition. It's the easiest way to build trust and respect. Now, I know we've given you a lot of information today. If you're having a panic attack or are overwhelmed with the amount of work you have ahead of you, don't be. This is a process, and you've already taken the first step. Following this training, if you're listening to us live right now, you'll receive an email from me, Leslie. In that email is a downloadable ebook that gives you details of the things we discussed in today's training. Download this ebook and use it as your guide as you go through the certification process. Or, if you're not ready to apply, reference back to it for tips on how to get there. And as always, if you have questions on anything we discussed today, reach out to any of us. We're happy to help. So I think we have a few minutes left to go through some questions some of you may have.
Anyone who has questions should go ahead and type them either into the chat feature or the questions feature. And while you're waiting, you can go ahead and take down Amy, Mary Jo, and Leslie's contact information in case you come up with questions later as you go through the ebook.
This is Mary Jo. For those of you who need continuing education credits for SHRM or HRCI, we will be providing those ID numbers. Also, a note that Hausmann-Johnson Insurance is the employee benefits and compensation sponsor for SHRM Wisconsin, and we hope to see you at state and local SHRM chapter events throughout the state. If you're a member of an organization who's in need of a speaker on human resources, employee benefits, workers' compensation, or safety topics, please reach out to us as we have many subject matter experts in those areas. Let's see, we do have a question. Do job applicants really care that a company has won a Best Workplace Award? Amy, could you talk to your experience here at Hausmann-Johnson?
Absolutely. So I do a lot of the recruiting for HJI, and a lot of our applicants comment on the Best Workplace Award. We have it on our website. We mention it in our ads when we post. And that's one of the main reasons that they apply to us. Insurance is not an exciting field necessarily. People don't grow up to be in insurance, and when they hear about it, they know that we're a good place, and they're more open to exploring the idea of going into insurance.
Oh boy. All right, we have another question. Gwen asked, how does a company apply to get the designation? What organizations administer the competitions?
You know, there are a host of different surveys and contests and awards that are out there. Some may be local, some may be industry specific. Hausmann-Johnson has chosen to pursue Great Place to Work designation. The Great Place to Work Institute has been around for decades, and the components that are measured in the Great Place to Work survey have been validated to prove that when companies score highly on them, they tend to be organizations that have good financial performance and good retention of employees. So I'd encourage you to shop around and see what kind of designation you think might work well with you. We chose Great Place to Work because we were committed to doing the survey over multiple years, and we also liked the fact that we could compare ourselves to other organizations in our industry and in our size on a national basis and be able to see where we scored well and where we scored poorly. So if you'd like more information, please please feel free to contact one of us, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that in more detail.
Amy asked, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation? And I'll go ahead and field that. Not only can you find a PDF version of today's PowerPoint presentation in the application that you're currently in, but as Leslie mentioned in the presentation, she will be following up this webinar with an email that will have a downloadable copy of our ebook, which follows this presentation almost to the point with even more details in it. So please feel free to look out for an email from Leslie with the ebook that will provide all of this information and even more. Jeffrey asked, what are some suggestions on how to show management the ROI of an employee engagement program?
I think that you would be best to use a certification like Great Place to Work. The long-standing certifications that are out there, if you look, for example, out on the website of Great Place to Work, you'll be able to see a lot of detailed information about research that has been done that ties higher levels of employee engagement to better financial performance. If, in fact, better financial performance is what the company is looking for. I think you may need to help senior management identify what their definition of success is. But I'd encourage you to look at Great Place to Work in more detail, because a lot of that information has been published by them.
I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. I will pull up the continuing education credits. If you do find that as you're going through the ebook and as you're going through today's presentation and kind of ruminating on it, if you find that you have questions, and you likely will, as you're going through this process, please feel free to reach out to Mary Jo, Amy, or Leslie, and any of the three of them would be able to answer your questions and help guide you through this very long but very worth it process. Thank you so much for attending, and I'll leave this slide up for a little bit so that you guys can copy the information down. Thanks all.